Hey guys, this is the MMA breakdown and we're doing predictions for UFC Fight Night 113, Nelson versus Ponzinibbio. Follow me on Twitter, my link is in the description at MMA Breakdown 0. I'm also tracking my bets on Capertech as well as Bet MMA Tips. My picks for UFC 213 are already posted on both of those sites, and as soon as the Tough 25 finale lines post on Bovada, I'll be making my bets for that card as well. And I'll also be doing a separate video going over my bets for both of those cards with you guys within the coming days, since those events are coming up this weekend. Before I get to my predictions for the fights on this card, I have to give predictions for a couple of newly added matchups to both UFC 213 and Tough 25 finale. So the first fight is Juliana Lima versus Tecia Torres. I like Torres big here. I think she just kind of outclasses Lima in every area. A much more diverse striker. And Lima maybe the more persistent and active wrestler, but Torres has a really good shot in wrestling herself. We saw that against Angela Hill. Torres is not dangerous, so I think it's pretty much a given. This is going the distance, and I guess that gives Lima, a better shot to win a decision than if Torres was a finisher. But Lima isn't dangerous either, and her wins have not been over great competition. She was semi-competitive against Esparza, but I think Torres is going to be a much tougher test to implement her wrestling game against, because Lima's striking is still pretty basic, I think. And yeah, I just think Torres is a higher level striker, and her takedown, being a good wrestler herself, I think is going to translate to her having better takedown defense than some of the other opponents Lima has out-wrestled. So the only caveat here is that it is short notice for Torres, so that gives me a little bit of concern. But otherwise, I just don't really see how Lima wins this, and I feel pretty confident in Torres by decision. Will be a fight that I'm going to bet on and incorporate into my parlays for the Tough 25 finale card. All right, and then a couple of new matchups opening UFC 213 on the Fight Pass prelims. Trevin Giles versus James Bochnevich. I'm not confident in either fighter here. Both fighters, from the footage I was able to see, fight back from adversity early in fights, and just seem to give their opponents a chance to beat them, especially Giles, who is in a pretty back and forth brawl. I can't remember the opponent's name, and he eventually won that fight, I believe by knockout. But yeah, he was put on some bad spots on the ground, out-wrestled, and I believe had his back taken and had to fight off a choke. And in the other fight of his that I saw, he also got his back taken, and on the feet tries to play a patient outside kicking game, and then tries to time those overhands. And he does have power, was able to hurt one of his opponents, but should have been able to finish them off on a couple of occasions. They did hurt them and couldn't, so seems like he's not able to capitalize the best on opportunities to finish his opponents, and kind of gets drawn into these back and forth brawls. So I'm going to take Bochnevich, who has a lot of submission wins on his record, and in the fight I was able to see against Matt Paul, while he was put on his back and kind of getting beaten up on, and put in a scissors choke as well, he was able to fight out of it and take the back, and from there he dominated, got the rear naked choke pretty quickly. And I just think Giles having seen him struggle in a couple of fights on the ground, being in kind of these back and forth sloppy fights. I think Bofando will be able to get that dominant position eventually and get the submission. So that's my pick. Bofando by decision, but like I said, not confident in it. Both fighters seem kind of, not very polished, pretty green. And Bofando, if he can't get that sub, I could see Giles just kind of riding out top position to win a decision. And on the feet, I do think Giles is more skilled. So, yeah, but that's my pick. Could change. We'll be listening to some other analysis, but that's what I'll go with for now. Then the next matchup, Cody Stamann versus Terry Ware. Also, I think a close matchup. Stamann, I'm sure, will be the favorite. The guy's built like a tank, and besides that, has kind of very marketable face and image, and just kind of fights like a guy who inspires confidence. I believe he probably has either a karate or taekwondo background, because the striking is very clean, very fluid, although he's kind of low output, and kind of one and done with his strikes. Doesn't throw a lot of combinations, and honestly, in the couple of fights of his I was able to see, doesn't seem to be that dangerous and didn't really do a whole lot to hurt his opponents with his striking. Also a solid wrestler. One of the fights I saw, he was able to just shoot in on the guy over and over again, run him against the fence, and get some big slams, and just very easily out-wrestled him. Terry Ware, I think, will be at a big athletic disadvantage in this fight. Also, technically on the feet, I don't think he's as good, and also doesn't throw as much volume. He fought Jared Papazian in a scrappy brawl. It was back and forth, and he got hit by him, so he's hittable. But I don't know, where he showed a decent jab. When he gets put on his back, he likes to attack with triangles immediately. And I don't know, Stamann just kind of playing that patient kind of point fighting game. I think Ware in the later rounds might turn up the pace and get in the clinch and make it more of a dirty fight. And that is going to be my pick. I'm going to pick Ware, I think, by decision. I can't really justify it. Stamann should be able to out-wrestle him and outstrike him, but Stamann just doesn't look like much of a finisher to me, and Ware, I think, is going to make it more of a gritty fight. So I do like Ware. Also, in one of Stamann's fights against, I believe the guy's name was Shopov or something like that, Stamann was outstriking him throughout the fight, not able to hurt him, and then by the end of the fight, like right at the buzzer, his opponent was able to land, it was like an axe kick on him that put him down. I think he injured his foot, and then just teed off on him for the last seconds of the fight. And I don't know, seeing that and seeing Ware gain momentum as the fight went on in a couple of his fights, just kind of gave me the feeling that Ware's going to be the one really implementing his offense down the stretch. So I like Ware, but again, I could be changing this pick, and two newcomers, I'm not confident in it. All right, now finally on to the Fight Night 113 fights. First up, Danny Henry versus Daniel Teymur, brother of David Teymur. I'm going to take Henry here. He's got a lot of finishes on his record, seems to be a very dangerous fighter. Has kind of unassuming power because he's not a very, doesn't have a great physique, doesn't look like someone with a lot of knockout power, kind of wiry, but seems to just be able to hurt people when he connects. And then on the ground, the guy looks like a snake, Darce chokes and body triangles, able to get in those positions very quickly once it hits the ground. And I was only able to see highlights of him, no actual full-length fight footage. But Teymur, in one fight of his that I saw, I believe his opponent's name was Yumbi. It was a crazy turn of events. He looked like he got knocked down and pretty close to being out. His opponent followed up with ground and pound. The ref called it off, and then they restarted the action, it looked like, and then Teymur came back to win, was able to get him on the ground, and eventually got a guillotine choke. And then another fight of his, he got an early first-round knockout, was able to time the shot really well, but just being hittable like that, looking a little bit chinny, and seemed to try to play that patient outside range striking game. I think Henry is going to bring the offense to him. He's going to fight at a higher pace from the outset. And yeah, I like Henry. All right, at women's bantamweight, Leslie Smith versus Amanda Lemos. Lemos making her debut, and I actually like Lemos in this fight. Her two most recent fights were both against the same opponent, and in both fights really struggled with the grappling. I mean, she has terrible takedown defense and terrible grappling when it hits the mat. There was an instance in, I think, their first fight where her opponent was on both her knees, just hanging on to a leg, and she was raining down hammer fists, and her opponent still managed to get her to the ground, and once it hit the ground, just immediately moved to back mount and or took her back and was attempting the rear naked choke. But the very few moments that I saw in both those fights where Lemos was able to get space and time on the feet and let her hands go, her strikes looked sharp, fast, and she seemed to have pop in her hands. And Leslie Smith, her game is not to out-grapple people. I think she's going to give Lemos the fight she wants on the feet, and Smith is a lot more wide open with her striking. I don't think her technique is as good as Lemos's. And when she fought Cyborg, I mean, I know that's the best fighter in the women's 145 division. But when she got hit, it looked like she just couldn't deal with the power, and she just kind of quit when she started getting tagged. And same thing in the Jessica Eye fight when she fought Eye. She was scrappy, but just seemed like she couldn't quite hang with the power. The fighter with more pop in their hands, and I think that's the case here. So I'm gonna go with Lemos. I know Smith's a vet and she's tough, but her last fight against Irene Aldana, Aldana just really has problems pulling the trigger. We saw that against Herrig, and Lemos just looks like an aggressive, precise striker when she's able to let her hands go. So I like Lemos. All right, at bantamweight, Brett Johns versus Albert Morales. This is a close matchup on paper, I think. Brett Johns, I think, should have the wrestling advantage. We saw that in his fight against Kwan Ho Kwok. Pretty solid wrestler. But on the feet, I like Morales. He has the length. And Brett Johns against Kwok was kind of getting lit up, especially as that fight went on. Was able to get the key takedowns, but on the feet, I definitely thought Kwok was outpointing him. Johns was able, he never got seriously hurt, and was able to, land his own shots every now and then, but was definitely the less active striker and was getting hit more. And I think that's going to be the case here against Morales, who's not a great striker, not a technical marvel, but we've seen him hang against more technical strikers than Johns, like in his last fight, Sukum Tha, Alejandro Perez, and even was going toe-to-toe with Thomas Almeida. Eventually got knocked out, but did have a nice back take in that fight. So yeah, I like Morales. I think Johns would have to out-wrestle him for 3 rounds, and I think Morales just has a little too much talent on the feet and also on the ground. Against Sukumtha, got the body triangle for most of that 3rd round and dominated him on the mat. So Morales has ability. He hasn't really had any standout performances, but I think Johns is just a little too one-dimensional. So I'm going to take Morales by decision, but I think it's a close one. Welterweight, Charlie Ward versus Galore Bofando, who's making his debut. And Bofando, I believe an African fighter, I'm not sure which country, but a very kind of unorthodox, very wild, like kind of like a capoeira style of striking. A lot of kicks, and he's very dexterous. And I think that style is going to get him past Ward here. In Ward's debut, got knocked out in the 1st round, but I believe it was the 1st round by another African fighter. I can't remember the guy's name, but the guy who just lost recently to Omari Akhmedov. And Ward seemed to just be outmatched against the more athletic, more high-volume, powerful striker. And I think that's the case here against Bofando. He hasn't fought since 2015, so coming off of a big layoff, that's a concern. But a couple of fights of his I was able to see. Was able to eventually get that knockout. Was out muscled a little bit in the clinch in a couple of fights that I saw, but also got another finish by ground and pound from the mount and looked dominant there. So seems to have a lot of raw athleticism and raw talent as far as the striking goes. Maybe not a very complete MMA game, but just seeing Ward, the way he went down to that fighter's name, I can't remember. I think this is a similar matchup to that, so I have to go with the Bofando by knockout. All right, at flyweight, Alexandre Pantoja versus Neil Seery. I like this fight. I think Pantoja should win it because of his ground game, mostly. Seery's a really scrappy fighter, but he is old, and I believe this is his retirement fight, because I think for a couple fights now, when he was scheduled to fight McCall, I believe he said that was going to be his retirement fight. So as far as I know, I think this is his retirement fight. And, he's had performances where he did a lot better than I thought he was going to be able to do. Actually getting the win against Chris Beal, and his fight against Horiguchi, I expected him to get finished, and it went the distance. So the guy's scrappy and really makes up for his age and his lack of athleticism by just being really dogged and determined. But on the ground, he's been out grappled dominantly by guys like Louis Smolka, and Pantoja. He's a good grappler. He finished Brandon Moreno on Tough, and we all know how hot Moreno is right now, and started it off by getting the advantage on the feet, and then moving to the back when the fight hit the ground. So Pantoja is solid on the feet. I thought his fight with Eric Shelton was really close, and thought he easily could have lost that one. That wasn't a very dominant fight, but I think he'll just have those key takedowns, get those dominant positions on the ground if he doesn't submit Seery, and he may not, because Seery is really active off of his back, really good defensive guard. And yeah, I just think that Pantoja, the more skilled grappler and on the feet, doesn't have the volume of Seery, but we know he's good on the feet as well, as he went toe-to-toe with Moreno for 3 rounds. So I like Pantoja, but small chance, I think, that Seery's able to outwork him on the feet. All right, at welterweight, Danny Roberts versus Bobby Nash. This is another kind of tough matchup, and I think Roberts is going to be favored, but I actually like Nash in this fight. Roberts, to me, has kind of been exposed. I think he's a little overhyped. He's been overhyped for a little while, I think. He's a decent range striker, has some craft to his game, and had that nice triangle choke against Nathan Coy off of the takedown attempt. And it was rather impressive that he was almost able to go the distance with Mike Perry before getting knocked out, and it was a back-and-forth fight. But you know what? His fight against Dominic Steele, rewatched that, and I thought he should have lost that fight. Got taken down several times and just seemed out-muscled and pushed around a lot by Steele in that fight. And Nash is a solid technical wrestler, not a guy with a great blast double, but will get the tight waist and work you against the fence and drag you down. I think he'll be able to impose that size on Roberts. And then also on the feet, Steele, who we just saw get exposed kind of by Luke Jumo, he was able to, with his basic power-based striking, was able to hang with Roberts for 3 rounds. And Nash, he's not as high volume. He's actually very patient and composed and picks his shots, but he has some knockout wins on his resume. He actually dropped Li Jingliang and took his back and came fairly close with a submission before he got knocked out. So the guy's dangerous with his hands, solid wrestler, and Roberts, I think the shine has just kind of wore off on him, especially in hindsight, losing, or he should have lost to Dominic Steele. So, and also being a little bit chinny against well, not chinny, he went almost 3 rounds, but eventually got knocked out by Mike Perry. I think Nash will be able to test that chin and out-wrestle him. I'm going to take Nash by submission. All right, at heavyweight, James Mulheron versus Justin Willis, 2 newcomers, and I don't know where they found these guys, but, 2 heavyweights with pot bellies, and it just looks like something you would have seen, back in the early days of the UFC, like 10 years ago. However, Justin Willis, although, he doesn't have your expected fighter's physique, even for a heavyweight, he did have, I think I was only able to find 1 fight of his, and he just ran over the guy from the opening bell, just ran forward, got the takedown, and just pounded him out brutally. But when you realize that he's out of AKA, it makes you feel a little better about him as a potentially high-level fighter. Whereas James Mulheron, a British fighter who also has that pot belly and who fought some random no-name heavyweight who was also out of shape and was not able to win dominantly. So that's about all I need to see to pick Willis comfortably here. He just looks like he actually has, a game. He can get to the ground. Looks like he has big power, and Mulheron looks like, I don't know, he's trying to be a technical kickboxer or something. I just saw, low output and just didn't impress me at all. So of the 2 guys with bad physique, I'll go with the guy who at least can run over people, even if his opponent, looked like someone they found at the gas station or something. So Justin Willis by TKO. All right, at light heavyweight, Khalil Roundtree versus Paul Craig. This fight, to me, is just kind of a coin flip. We know that Roundtree's weakness is getting taken down and getting subbed. It happened to him on Tough, and it happened to him against the common opponent here between the 2 guys, Tyson Pedro. And Paul Craig we saw that he has a strong ground game. When he fought Luis Henrique da Silva, he was able to get to the ground. And after outworking Silva for a couple rounds, got that armbar submission win. However, when Craig fought Tyson Pedro, he pretty much got dominated. Was no match for him on the feet. Pedro was able to, I believe with the knee is what put him down. But he hurt him on the feet, and then on the ground just smashed him with elbows from side control, I think. And Roundtree against Pedro actually dropped Pedro first. Got a little overeager, and Pedro was able to take him down and sub him. So if this is able to go out of the first round, I like Craig's chances to outwork Roundtree, to get him to the ground and out-grapple him, and he'll be a much bigger fighter. But Roundtree didn't seem to lose any confidence when he fought Daniel Jolly in his last fight. And we saw that the guy is still just a wrecking ball in that first round. He has so much speed and power, and Craig, being cracked the way it was by Pedro. And quite honestly, Luis Henrique da Silva, everyone beats up on that guy. So I think Roundtree is going to have the speed and power here to catch Craig in that first round. I don't think Craig's going to be able to survive it. But we know that ground game's a weakness for Roundtree. Corey Hendricks, where's that guy now? And he was able to withstand that storm and take Roundtree down and sub him. That's, Roundtree's Achilles heel, and I think it's in his head. But I am going to go with Roundtree, but I think it's a really close fight, a dangerous one for Roundtree if you can't get that early finish. All right, at middleweight, Jack Marshman versus Ryan James. To me, this is a fight, a good fight for Marshman to get back on the winning track. Had a pretty tough opponent for only a second UFC fight against Thiago Santos. And he did manage to drop Santos in that fight, but ate the head kick eventually that KO'd him. And Ryan James, while he is pretty untechnical on the feet, and kind of just looks like a big oaf with, not much technique, he is scrappy and he fights hard. He was able to outwork Gerald Mearshart from top position for a little bit before he got subbed. And then in that fight, I can't remember, Bubba Bush or Keith Barish. I always get those guys mixed up. Whoever he fought in his debut, his technique was ugly and he got hit, tall guy with his head straight up and not much technique in his hands. He was able to outwork him for the decision and was right there the whole time. So he is tough and scrappy, and I think that makes him a little bit better than people think he is. But Marshman, we saw that boxing from him against Magnus Siedenblad. He was able to tag Santos, a very skilled striker and fighter. So I think, Marshman here with a high likelihood should KO James. So that's my pick. All right, a lightweight Stevie Ray versus Paul Felder. I love this matchup. Stevie Ray, for me, is just a little too one-dimensional, I think, to win this fight. And on the feet, he showed power early in his UFC career, but not so much anymore. And I think his boxing game, like I said, a little bit too one-dimensional. It's not varied enough, and Paul Felder, with all of his unorthodox strikes and techniques, very sharp Muay Thai game, has the knees and the elbows. That's what he knocked out Alessandro Ricci with in his last fight. And the spinning kicks, all that stuff. I think that's really going to give him the advantage here against Ray. And also Felder, has a little bit of a ground game. We saw him sub Derek Cruikshank in their fight after getting outstruck for almost 3 rounds. And Ray still looks like he has a pretty novice ground game. When he fought Joe Lozon, just got smashed, almost finished in that first round. Was just eating elbows from hell and stuck in Lozon's mount. I think Felder might be able to out-clinch Ray here, and maybe take him down, but mostly I just think on the feet, Ray, he doesn't get going early enough, has not shown power lately, and Felder just, has those unorthodox strikes that you don't see coming that can end a fight in one shot. And and he's fought, high-level competition and done well against them, like his fight against Edson Barboza. So Ray, I think, is just still a little too green. I know it's going to be a hometown fight for him, but I think just not dangerous enough on the feet. And, Felder, he's got that killer instinct and those fight-ending strikes. So I like Felder, and I'm probably going to have to take him by KO. All right, women's strawweight, Joanne Calderwood versus Cynthia Calvillo. I really like Calvillo's game. A really scrappy grappler, great scrambler. And on the feet, while she doesn't have too much to offer, she is kind of able to make more out of her striking than she should. Giving her technique, she tries to work a jab and really press the action on the feet. But kind of like what I was saying with Ray, although it's much more justified here, I think Calvillo's just too green for Calderwood. The thing about Calderwood, though, that might give Calvillo a chance here is that she's just always a head case fighter. Against Mina Moreau's just getting lit up and driven back, and Moreau's pulling guard for that armbar, finishing her quickly and making her look like an amateur, and then against Andrade just didn't put up much of a fight either. But Andrade is an elite fighter, title challenger, and Calvillo, the wins over Pearl Gonzalez, and who was her fight before that? Amanda Bobby Cooper. Nice wins, but man, Calderwood, when her head is right, she's a good fighter, pretty close to what I would call an elite fighter for that division. So I just don't see Calvillo with a very basic striking game and then a game that's totally predicated on scrambles. I don't see that being enough to get by Calderwood. So I think Calderwood on the feet is going to be more technical. I think she could press Calvillo up against the fence. Calderwood showed good boxing against who was was it Seohee Ham or I believe Seohee Ham in her I think that was her debut UFC fight. Calderwood, I think, just has more technique and can fight better in more areas, and on the ground we know Calvillo's very good, but I see Calderwood, if it goes to the ground, her just kind of holding her down in top position. So yeah, I like Calderwood here. I just not enough experience for Calvillo yet. So Calderwood by decision. All right, at welterweight, the main event, Gunnar Nelson versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. And I've been a big fan of Ponzinibbio. I love this win streak that he's on. I love the guy. I thought he was impressive since his tough days, and was actually supposed to be the finalist in that season, but got injured and wasn't able to make the finale. But Ponzinibbio, for as fast as he is and as fluid as he is with his striking and as much volume as he puts out, just has a real bread and butter boxing game, and really showed his speed advantage against Zach Cummins, and that was the fight where I actually picked against him. But for as great as he's looked, I just think he's outgunned here. The thing about this fight that makes it really hard for me to be able to see Ponzinibbio winning is that Nelson, he's kind of become a knockout artist. He's at least able to change the fight with one strike, and just has a great patient game where he just waits to time you, and then when he finds that opening, just explodes in and lands that big shot. We saw it against Alan Jouban. We saw it a while ago against Brandon Thatch, and even against Tumanov, was the first one to really land a fight-changing shot in that fight before he took him down. And Ponzinibbio, like I said, as great as his boxing has been, he has knockout power himself, but it's been a while, and the guys he's finished, are not guys that are either that durable or just high-level fighters. His finishes were against Court McGee and Wendell Oliveira and Andreas Stahl, and this is Gunnar Nelson. So, Nelson, I think for a while the strategy to beat him was to do the boxer-wrestler thing, to engage him in the clinch. Cummings and Rick Story, they had a lot of success against Nelson doing that. But, just high volume boxing I don't think is enough. Nelson's going to find that opening, and I think he's going to hurt Ponzinibbio. We saw Ponzinibbio's chin tested against Lorenz Larkin. Couldn't deal with the speed. His chin didn't hold up. And Nelson, really making use of that power and that timing. So I think he's going to hurt Ponzinibbio, and then finish him off on the ground. And also in the Court McGee fight, Ponzinibbio was getting tagged early in that before he was able to overtake McGee and get the knockout himself. So we've seen Ponzinibbio's chin not hold up at least once, and tested in another fight. And also remember when he fought Ryan LaFleur in his UFC debut, out-wrestled for the majority of the fight. That's how he lost. Even hurt LaFleur late in that fight, and LaFleur still got the late takedown. So Ponzinibbio is just outmatched. I really enjoy watching the guy fight, but Nelson by submission. All right, so my 5 most confident picks for this card. My 3 really confident picks are Nelson, Marshman, and Willis. I really like those guys. And then 2 more, I would go Felder and Pantoja. All right, so those are my predictions for UFC Fight Night 113. Thank you guys for watching, and I will have my video up for UFC on Fox. I believe it's 25. That'll be up when you're watching this, so check the description for that. Follow me on Twitter. Follow my bets on Capper Tech and Bet MMA Tips, and I'll be doing more betting videos where I just show you guys what bets I'm going to be making for each event. So look out for those. But thank you guys. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye.